Dismissed the criminal indictments against James Comey and Letitia James, who were charged by the Department of Justice at the urging of President Trump. The judge found that the prosecutor who brought the cases against the former FBI director and the New York Attorney General was not lawfully appointed to the position. The prosecutor overseeing the two separate cases was Lindsay Halligan. President Trump had appointed her as interim U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. She did not have any experience as a prosecutor. The White House released a statement on the dismissals saying, quote, "The facts of the indictments against Comey and James have not changed, and this will not be the final word on this matter." Let's bring in NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach, and also with us NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Gary, remind us what exactly Comey and James were charged with in the first place, and then get into why the judge is dismissing these cases.
So the former FBI director was charged with lying to Congress in relation to something he said on September 30th of 2020. And that date's important because we're now more than 5 years past that point, which means we are beyond the statute of limitations on his particular charges. For New York Attorney General Retitia James, she was charged with bank fraud and mortgage fraud charges and crimes in relation to a house that she owns in Norfolk, Virginia, that she says was a second home that may have not, in fact, been that case. But there were several motions that were put forward by both folks in each of their cases about this being a selective and vindictive prosecution, about issues with the grand jury proceedings. But it was the appointment of Lindsay Halligan that this judge found to be unlawful, and therefore she is tossing both of these cases out.
And Gary, both James and Comey released statements after the ruling. Comey also posted a video on Instagram just recently. What did they say?
Yeah, so the New York Attorney General released a statement saying, in part, quote, "She is heartened by today's victory and grateful for the prayers and support." She said she remains fearless in the face of these baseless charges as she continues fighting for New Yorkers every single day. Of course, she is still the Attorney General for the state of New York. The former FBI director putting a straight-to-camera video on Instagram just moments ago saying, in part, quote, "This case mattered to me personally, obviously, but it matters most because a message has to be sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies." He goes on to say that I don't care what your politics are, you have to see that as fundamentally un-American and a threat to the rule of law. Now, James Comey is somebody who has been outspoken against the president ever since he was removed from the office.
Danny, what is the judge deciding here? Like, why did the judge say that this appointment just wasn't done the right way?
It is in the Constitution that officers of the United States must be appointed and confirmed by the Senate. Now, through statute, Congress has made some exceptions for the situation where you need an interim U.S. attorney. And what happened was the statute allowed for 120 days for an interim U.S. attorney to be appointed. And that's what happened. What the government tried to do is, once the first interim U.S. attorney left, they tried to just appoint Lindsay Halligan for another 120 days.
Right, there was someone before her,
exactly,
and then they tried to do it again.
Right, and that would sort of do away with the entire purpose of the interim statute, because once those 120 days are over, then the district court is involved. So the bottom line is this. If Lindsay Halligan was never properly appointed, she was essentially a civilian. And a civilian cannot march into a federal grand jury no more than you and I can, and start getting indictments.
So what happens now legally? Anything else? Can the Justice Department do anything to get around this?
Well, here's the thing. Even though they may be dismissed without prejudice, that means in theory the government can bring them again. The judge has no power and really no say over whether the statute of limitations have expired. Different for Letitia James' case, but as to Comey's case, it may be that the limitations period has passed. It passed just after he was indicted. The government may not be able to charge him again.
All right, Danny Savalos for us and Gary Grumbach, thanks so much. And Danny, stay with us for this.